From Kern Government Television, welcome to this week's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting, originating from the County Administrative Center located at 1115 Truxtun Avenue, Bakersfield, California. Kern County's vision is to create and maintain a customer-centered county government designed to garner the confidence, support, and trust of the people we serve. Today's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting will convene momentarily.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, May 1 meeting of the Kern County Board of Supervisors here at the 2 p.m. session. Madam Clerk, would you, with Board of Reconvene, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Supervisor Gleason?
Here.
Supervisor Scribner?
Here.
Supervisor Maggard?
Here.
Supervisor Couch?
Here.
Supervisor Perez?
Welcome to our afternoon meeting. We have a few things to go over this afternoon. Most of them are on consent, but we'll certainly we have a few other things to go through as well. So first of all, we're going to turn to Mark Nations, our County Counsel, and ask him for a report on actions taken during closed session. Mr. Nations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The board did meet in closed session with respect to the employee performance evaluation of the fire chief. There was no reportable action coming out of that. The board did not meet on item 47, conference with labor negotiators, because it proved to be unnecessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to our consent calendar this afternoon. Consent items are considered to be routine by staff, and they are indicated on the agenda with a CA or a C above the number of the item on the agenda. They are typically voted on in one motion, and if a member of the public wishes to ask a question, they can do that. If a member of the board wishes to remove an item from consent, that is at the discretion of the board, and a board member may do that. So, but a member of the public may make a comment in just a moment when I offer you that opportunity. First, let me identify what is on our consent. We have three different consent agendas this afternoon. The first is our consent for our regular county business, and the first item is on page 3 with item 5 through item 10. I need to read a correction into the record for item number 5. It is a request from Elliot Kirschenman for an exception to a requirement for a connection to public sewer for a precise development plan, and I need to correct the map number. The map number indicated in the agenda is map number 101-10. It needs to be corrected to 102-10, 102-10. So with that correction, all those items 5 through 10 are on consent. On page 4, all the items 11 through 15 on consent. On page 5, all the items 16 through 20 on consent. On page 6, all the items 21 through 30 are on consent. And on page 7, items 31 through 30, through 38 are all on consent. So are there any members of the public that would like to ask a question or make a comment regarding anything that is on consent? Yes, sir. Come forward, sir. Nice to see you, Mr. Dees.
How you doing, sir?
Good. For the record, could you give us your name and then tell us what item you'd like to make a comment about?
Kevin Dees, Kevindees, item 25.
25, yes, sir. What's your comment, please?
Well, I would ask that you pull the, so we can discuss it further, and if you're unwilling to do so, we can just make the comment.
I believe that Supervisor Gleason is going to pull that item, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So you, why don't you tell us now what your concern is? No, we'll have you do that when it's pulled. We'll have you do that. So just sit tight.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that would like to make comment this afternoon under a public comment section? Section? I thought I saw somebody outside that wanted to do that, but apparently not. Okay, then let's return to the board. That was about consent. I'm sorry, I misspoke. It's about consent that we asked for that. So item number 25, I believe Supervisor Gleason said he was going to pull. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So item number 25 is removed from consent. Is there any other comment from board members? So can I have a motion then to approve our consent agenda as modified with the removal of item number 25, and then adjourn as the Board of Supervisors and reconvene as the Kern Sanitation Authority?
So moved.
Thank you, sir. Second?
Second.
Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved, all ayes.
Thank you. We are now sitting as the Kern Sanitation Authority. There is one item on consent, item 1. And is there any member of the public that wishes to ask a question or comment about that? Okay, then. General comment? That's in a few minutes, sir. These are all consent items. Do you want to talk about something that's on the agenda or off the agenda? It's off. Yeah, okay, I'll get to you in just a second. So, okay, then the Kern Sanitation Authority, I'd like a motion, please, to approve the consent item for the Kern Sanitation Authority, and then adjourn as the Kern Sanitation Authority and reconvene as the Ford City-Taft Heights Sanitation District.
Motion.
Thank you. Is there a second? Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved, all ayes.
Thank you. Item number 2 on page 2 of our agenda is the consent item for the Ford City-Taft Heights Sanitation District. Any members of the public have a question about that item? Then I'll return to the board and ask the board to motion to approve the Ford City-Taft Heights Sanitation District consent item and then adjourn as the Ford City-Taft Heights Sanitation District and reconvene as the Board of Supervisors.
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved, all ayes.
Thank you. Okay, we are now sitting again as the Kern County Board of Supervisors, and our next item is public presentations. That is the opportunity for members of the public to make comment to us about any item that is not otherwise on our agenda today. We offer 2 minutes per person for those kind of remarks. So, sir, would you please give us your name for the record?
Good afternoon. My name is David Abbasi with the Central Valley Cannabis Association. I was here last week talking about the conflict of interest Supervisor Perez had with the cannabis vote. Her husband's employer, Ben Eilenberg, was pushing for option B and paid for her vote. After the board voted to ban instead, I met with Eilenberg and Perez, whose plan was to draft a petition that is essentially option B, gather the signatures to qualify it, then her and newly elected Supervisor Jeff Heinley, along with one other supervisor, would adopt it instead of putting it on the ballot. That's why Supervisor Perez must recuse herself from voting for the Eilenberg-Godinez initiative. She did not separate her financial interest from her decision-making. But she's not the only one involved in public corruption. Supervisor Maggard, you began smiling and looking over at Supervisor Gleason after I had just finished speaking about the human suffering and misery created as a result of the county's actions. You looked happier than a pig in mud as you referred to bringing up your own regulations that would suit only 6 dispensaries, as you tried to promote at the beginning of the year. Have you no compassion or concern for your freedom? Just to be clear, I was interviewed by 3 special agents of the FBI here locally. We spoke for a few hours regarding the public corruption. In 2012, you banned medicinal cannabis, then came up with Measure G that was a monopoly for 1 dispensary. Now again in 2017, you banned and tried to create a monopoly for 6 dispensaries. We know which group you have in mind, the ones represented by Kim Schaefer and Jimmy Yee. From ambulances to cannabis, Kern County sure likes monopolies. Mr. Maggard, you must also recuse yourself from putting forward any proposals. Whether you're promoting Fernando Jara's client or Jimmy Yee and Kim Schaefer's, we the people hereby censure Supervisor Perez and Maggard from the proceeding. We the people put forward our own petition to protect safe access. I'm attaching a copy of that, and let the people decide, Thank you.
Mr. Abbasi, your time has expired. Are there any other members of the public that would like to make comment this afternoon?
Hello, David Fluhart, Havelock First District. Marijuana is a moving target. I think Mr. Scrivener had said that, and Mike Maggard, you said that, yeah, I have absolutely no confidence in any of it. Anyways, everybody's talking about monopolies and whatnot. I don't know how this is going to go. I hope there's a bunch of shenanigans, and I hope it goes the right way, and ultimately, marijuana, I've said it before, is, I don't know if it's going to save the world, but it's the only thing that can, and hopefully this board will think above all the fray of everybody else, and we can figure out some way to include the airport with importing it. I don't know. There's a whole bunch of issues with that. It's going to be real simple. More along the world peace and whatnot. Mexico and migration is a big issue, and somewhere in there, marijuana lies in that issue, and hopefully we can think of something a little bit bigger to create a method to, you know, stabilize Mexico, help migrants come and go and be happy neighbors, and include Meadows Field in that because we have an open port of entry. I don't know. I'm blown away. I wasn't even thinking about talking about this. I want to talk about my grandmother in Southern California, Edison, cutting her power because some squatters up in Lake Isabella didn't pay their bill. I don't know. So I'm really confused, but you know, I just would want to say that you guys think above the fray and you know, think outside the box on this one. It's a moving target, and it's something that you guys need to grab a hold of. Everybody's fighting for it, and the only thing we can do, like I've told you before, is make a public trust out of it to compete with the money grabbers out there. I don't know. Another great issue is with the realignment of the districts. Like literally, District 4 has got wonderful with half the water rights and all the human resources. You know, marijuana is going to become an issue for this county, especially in 2023 when it's legal and it's like blown open for the big companies and whatnot. You guys need a plan for that, plan appropriately, and I guess my time's up, so I'll just leave you. Thank you very much.
Supervisor Perez, I apologize if I overlooked your request to speak.
No, it's fine. I wanted Mr. Nations to know the statements as to me are completely false and inaccurate. So, thank you.
I'm always perplexed as to whether to address Mr. Abbasi and only provoke further ridiculous statements, or do we just be quiet and let him say what he's going to say? So I don't think it warrants a response. I think our records are pretty clear. Okay, anybody else want to speak from the public? We're going to close that part of the meeting then and return to the board. Any board members have comment or question, reports that they would like to make this afternoon? Okay. Then item number 25 was pulled from consent, and it is a proposed job specification revision and increase in salary range from 73.5 to 77.5 for the Director of Airports position. Is that Mr. Alsop? Are you going to initiate that discussion?
I'd be happy to, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Would we like to allow, I'm not sure of the process, Mr. Dees.
Why don't we have you explain what the issue is, and then we'll allow Mr. Dees to ask his questions.
Got it. The issue is it's the airport director position. When we have a vacancy in the county like this one, particularly one of this high level, the director of Kern County Airports, which is an unclassified at-will position with all the responsibility along with all the expectations your board places on that role. We take the opportunity to review the job spec to make sure it is where it needs to be to attract the kind of talent that we need. The very least, we review whether the salary range is consistent with the compensation offered at other comparable jurisdictions and contemplate an adjustment if we believe one is needed and where we believe it is in the best interest of the county. And that is this agenda item. The current range for this position in Kern County is 25% below average, paid to the same position in other comparable counties. Those comparable counties, in case folks would like to know, are Fresno, Sacramento, Santa Barbara, Ventura, San Luis Obispo, Tulare, Sonoma, and Stanislaus. We have an opportunity, your board does before you today, to address this, given what you'll all be expecting your next airport director to do, particularly as it concerns the development of additional commercial air service out at Meadows Field, which I know we all want. Our recommendation before you today merely increases the salary to 2.5% below the average paid to those comparable airports I've mentioned. We believe setting this new range will assist us in bringing, at least helping us, we believe, bring the very best here to Kern County. This is a range of 77.5. Other folks who have this range are your DHS director, your general services director, your ETR director, employers training resource, your HR director, your budget director. I would conclude saying that this position is a particularly highly skilled one that we're looking for. Certainly a specialization in the area of and a background with deliverables, demonstrated deliverables in commercial air service development are critical. Continued development of our facilities out at the airport, amenities, services, the things that all of our folks in this community, in this county expect to have. Completion of runway improvements, which are ongoing. Relationships and knowledge of and a demonstrated track record of working with the Federal Aviation Administration in Washington, D.C. is critical. Along with economic development out around the airport. I think most of you all know that there's quite a bit of economic development activity in the tens of millions of dollars, in fact, hundreds of millions of dollars being either underway or being contemplated. And that involves a direct relationship and involvement of the airport director in those matters as well. So with that, I'll leave it and be happy to answer any questions. And I also have Mr. Wiebe from my office here to assist.
Thank you. Supervisor Gleason would like to make comment before we proceed.
Thanks, Chairman. I pulled this off the agenda after a phone conversation with a gentleman in the public who brought to my attention that this is constituted a 22% pay raise, and that the optics of this was not good because of the fact that we have so many employees in Kern County that have had no pay raises in 9 years. And after hearing that conversation with him, I thought it would be an opportunity for him to further his arguments so we could listen to them and then get the rebuttal from the CAO, which we just got some of it. Hopefully we're going to get a little more, and then be able to make a informed decision in front of the public so that the optics would be better understood. So I'd cede my time to the person who's Kevin, who wants to talk to us.
Mr. Dees, would you mind coming back up? Good afternoon again.
Good afternoon, thank you. First of all, let me start out by saying thanks for pulling the agenda item. I really appreciate it.
Our pleasure.
Chairman Maggard, members of the board, Kevin Dees, Kern County Detention Officers Association. As you know, your detention deputies have not had a salary increase in 9 years. And now we're the lowest, if we want to talk about comparable counties, we're the lowest out of all comparables here. As a result, we now have approximately 65 detention deputy vacancies in the ranks that I represent, and our members that we have currently are still subjected to family-destroying mandatory overtime for 12 years now. In the midst of this, you have made it clear to your deputies that they are due salary increase, but you've been unwilling to provide it due to your declared structural deficit. Now, however, our members see the consent agenda item to approve 22.5% salary, equating to a bump of $30,000+ annually for the Director of Airports. The reasoning provided is to be more competitive in attracting high caliber talent. I would agree with that as for us. And a need to reinforce the ability to attract and retain qualified candidates. If your board follows through in approving this action, it will accomplish two things. First, it'll clearly demonstrate the lack of leadership by telegraphing to all county employees that you're unwilling to have management lead by example. Second, it'll be viewed by our members as an act of extreme hypocrisy, which will undermine your credibility with your safety employees should you continue to withhold pay raises for them while simultaneously providing pay raises to management. On behalf of KCDOA, I ask that you either reconsider this salary increase or provide it across the board to your members as well. I understand that when looking at this, that we talk about an enterprise fund. I realize that. But if you truly look at detentions and what your deputies do, we pour millions of dollars into the general fund every year. We have an AES contract, as Supervisor Perez knows, that we've just started that's going to help the mentally ill and help get money back into the general fund, as well as our Fed contracts that we book federal inmates. Well, that money continues to go in, that never comes out to the employees. So if you truly think about this and wrap your head around the enterprise aspect and apply that to us, it would be applicable to us as well. And when you talk about highly qualified, the best talent, you got a deputy right here on the wall protecting all of you. That's the best talent we have. So I would ask you just reconsider and keep your public safety in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dees. Anybody else who'd like to make comment this afternoon?
David Fluhart, Havilah First District. I guess they don't come in town very much, so I just got to talk. Anyways, I feel for our employees that haven't gotten raises in 9 years, but we're talking thousands of employees, like 7,000, 7,500, something like that. But we're talking about one airport director that can energize the airport, that can be a financial hub that supports the rest of the county. So, you know, I mean, you don't want to get somebody weak in that position and blow off all that open acreage just north of the airport. It's a tough decision for you guys, but you know, at some point, you're talking one position that's very valuable versus 7,500. How far does that 30,000 go between 7,000 people? Not very far. I don't think they would take that $30,000 offer between the 7,000 people very serious from human resources. And I know they're working hard on it because they're in you know, closed session almost every week. Anyways, I most sincere thing I've said today. Okay, thank you, and thank you.
Any other members of the public wish to make comment? Mr. Alsop, would you like to further expand upon your justification for the increase?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I would not bring this before your board if it wasn't carefully thought through. The reality is that we have an airport department. It is a non-general fund department. It doesn't have any exposure except in extraordinary circumstances to the general fund. We have a department that is incredibly important to this county. It's much more than Meadows Field. There are airport facilities all throughout the county, and but out at Meadows Field, this community expects that airport to be the very best it can possibly be. And I think we're on the way to doing that. There's been a lot done out there. You can see it's very tangible. But we need to develop air service out there. We have hardly any. And I know I don't like it. And I think it's not something that we could ignore, that your board can ignore. And I believe that the range that we're setting for this particular position is thoughtful. It was researched, was not just thrown out willy-nilly. We looked at what other counties are doing with their airport directors. We found an average, and we're 2.5% below that average for those facilities. I'd also argue that, again, this is a highly specialized position. That, you know, it's hard to find somebody that gives you everything that we need out there. It's a very special person that we're looking for. There's not a whole lot of them. It's probably going to be somebody outside of Kern County, in all likelihood. And we need to do everything we can to convince those people that this is the place to be. I believe having this range helps do that. Also, the airport, as Mr. Fluhart correctly said, is a major economic development piece in this county. There's a lot of economic development activity happening around there. The the commercial air service. I mean, when you talk about salary increases and our ability to provide for our employees, the airport is a big part of that. It's helping diversify our economy, lending to the revenue that flows into county coffers, and in turn, we have the ability to do things we want to do with that money. So I would leave it to your board to make the decision, but the recommendation from your CAO is that we raise the range up to 77.5. And also just to be clear, we're not giving somebody a raise. There is nobody in this position. We're taking the opportunity with a vacancy to correct something that we believe needs to be corrected. The issues related to salary with all of our county employees are not lost on me. I've said it publicly a million times, and I know Mr. Dees has heard me say that. And it's something that we're working on, and we're working very hard on it. With all of our units, the detention officers is just one. So with that, we're continuing to work hard. I would recommend that you all approve this needed salary adjustment.
Supervisor Gleason, would you like to respond?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Mr. Alsop, what's the budget for the airport? You off the top of your head, do you have any idea what that budget is?
Yeah, just over 30 million.
$30 million?
Yes, sir.
This change in job description and the increase in salary, what is the impact to the general fund?
So it's going from 10 to 12, 938. There's no impact to the general fund at all. This is all enterprise fund. If you'd like a number of impact on the enterprise fund, I could try and calculate that out.
I don't need it. The business can you talk a little bit, just a couple minutes about the business opportunities of having an efficient airport and what it would mean to the citizens of Kern County in terms of economic development?
Well, the airport, I think, can be a major generator of economic development activity, whether it's through commercial air service or through facilities. We have a flight training academy where you can go out and get your bachelor's degree out there. A lot of folks don't know about that. There are lots of opportunities to develop the airport beyond where it currently is, inside the fence. There's a lot of opportunity directly outside the fence and around the airport that there's a lot of opportunity there for economic development. In fact, there's a lot happening now. So it's critical. And I think the airport is right up there when you look across Kern County at all of our jewels with regard to development. It's right up there, having the ability to directly improve our ability to invest in our community and invest in our employees.
I got a tough one for you. Lost opportunities. In recent, perhaps, lost opportunities, without being specific. Can you talk a little bit about that and why having such a specialized person would be, maybe we would have not had some issues, or maybe they could have been better managed if we had a person that was more specialized?
Supervisor, I would only say that the airport director, I think, is among the most highly specialized of all of your department heads in this county. And relationships with the Federal Aviation Administration. And I'm not just talking about picking up the phone and saying, "Hi, Bob, it's nice to talk to you again." I'm talking about somebody who has been dealing with this agency for a number of years, who has the ability to get things done. Virtually everything has to get done through the FAA. And it's not just the FAA. There's a lot of other agencies that are involved, but locally, you want to have an airport director who understands project management, who understands your vision for the airport and is able to help you paint a vision. and somebody who has a demonstrated track record in building a strong commercial air service. Folks in this community, as you well know, want options. And they want to be able to go to Meadows Field, and it would be nice to be able to fly out of Meadows Field to go anywhere. At least having a handful or a couple handfuls of additional options rather than just the very, I think it's 2 we have, or a few we have. So highly specialized, somebody who has been doing this for a while, who has a proven track record. I believe this range that we're proposing potentially gets us that.
Thanks, almost done. You'd mentioned that the range that you're proposing is still below a comparable range for the Fresno Airport, is that correct?
Supervisor, I believe it is below Fresno Airport specifically, but at the end of the day, we are, if you look at the average for the comparable airports I listed, we are raising the base salary of this position where it is now I believe 2.5%. Is that correct, Jason? 2.5% below the average.
If I may, Supervisor Gleason through the chair, the Fresno Airport is actually operated by the city, is right at the average, so it's almost exactly 2.5% what the city of Fresno pays their airport director.
Thanks. Appreciate all your response. Appreciate your candor. I also appreciate your statement made about how you're empathetic to the employees of Kern County, and your understanding of the fact that we're in financial straits. And one of the important aspects of getting out of these financial straits is hiring the right people to do the job at that airport, which could be a major development of economics for us. And so my empathies are truly to our employees, but my loyalties first and foremost go to the taxpayer. And the taxpayer requires that we do the best job we possibly can to make the best possible decisions we can to improve our economics as best as we can, and that's where my vote's going to go. And I agree that we need top talent, and that is a moneymaker, and I'm going to support your motion. I'll make a motion to support your agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Gleason. Ms. Oviatt, would you like to make comment?
Lorelei Oviatt, Director of Planning and Natural Resources. I appreciate the detentions officer's concerns. I also wanted to add, however, that it is not just the airport, as Mr. Alsop was attempting to kind of create for you. There is all that vacant land around the airport, and it is critical because of the way the airport operates and because we have actual, real 727s flying in and out, that when private property owners around the airport, and we are seeing an explosion of interest, want to do anything, the planning department has to work with the airport director on trying to ascertain how can we help businesses grow around that airport without putting the airport out of business. They are complicated geometrics. Sometimes these companies are on a hair trigger. We have to decide right now. Your board actually took an action a few months ago to rearrange all of the roads out there, which took us a year of negotiation and conversation. I do not know what the salary should be, but I can tell you that this is a future economic engine for us. If we bring companies and they build, we will have more property taxes, more sales tax for the general fund. So I wanted to kind of create a bigger picture that it's not just getting more planes in and out of the airport, it's also what happens around the airport. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Oviatt. Okay, we've already closed the public comment portion of our meeting with regard to this item. And I'm now looking, we have a motion with regard to the approval of this adjustment. Is there a second or other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll go ahead and second the motion. I agree with the argument from our CAO. However, I also understand the position of not just the detention deputy that spoke today and the association that he represents, but we have our sheriff deputies represented by KLEA, same situation. We have retention and recruitment issues. We all realize that. I know that this afforded you guys an opportunity to put a light on that issue. And so I don't blame you at all for bringing it up, and I understand where you're coming from. But the fact that this is an enterprise fund, it doesn't impact the general fund. This is an economic development issue for us out there at that airport. That airport, in my opinion, has not reached its potential, and I think that if it does reach its potential, then there's going to be a lot more opportunities for the county to develop from an economic standpoint than we have right now. And so I think that our staff didn't bring this to us lightly. Mr. Alsop is not insensitive to the optics. I think that he has made a recommendation based on his analysis of our ability to recruit someone to this position that is going to be the caliber that we require. And so I will second the motion. I'll support staff's recommendation, but believe me, your comments did not fall on deaf ears.
Supervisor Couch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Dees is right, Mr. Alsop's right, and Ms. Oviatt's right. And you're probably getting tired of hearing us say, be patient with us. I don't blame you for that. But I think we're kind of saying that to you all over again. I want to add one thing to this, another element, that if we have someone good in place in this particular position, I know the plan is eventually also to have the airport pay for its fire service, which it currently does not, which is another easing of the burden on the general fund, or specifically the fire fund, I guess. And we're kicking in money from the general fund to the fire fund. You have to follow these dollars around to eventually get back to the general fund. But there's one thing that I thought, I remember you briefing me on this, and I thought that this was coming to us as a package which said we want to increase the salary range for the director, but there were some deletions that were coming as well. Was that not the case? We never discussed that, or did I just have that in my head? That
No, I don't recall that discussion on this item with this position. But I should admit that another one of you had asked me the same questions, so I need to go back. There was the only issue here, the only thing that we were doing with this position was changing the salary range. It wasn't tied to any other changes.
Well, I'm going to support it, but I would encourage you to let's take a look at our notes and see if there wasn't some discussion about that. I don't even know if that's warranted, but for some reason it's in my head that when this came forward, when this was due to come forward, whenever that was, it's today, but I don't remember when you said it would come forward, that there were going to be some, it was sort of a package of sort of a reorganization of the administration of the airport.
Yeah, that was a different item. Wasn't this item, but I will clarify with you that after the meeting, sir.
So anyway, I'm going to be supportive of this action, but we all understand exactly what you said and exactly the work that you do. And I'm hopeful, you said something, Mr. Diaz, which is, this action will do two things, that the employees will see it as, I don't recall your exact words, and you're right, some of them will. I hope that some of them also see this, the bigger picture for what we're trying to accomplish here, because at the end of the day, what we're trying to, I'll speak for me, what I'm trying to accomplish, and I believe the rest of the board is too, is to put the county in the best position possible for economic growth, which in turn provides the money that gets to the heart of your issue. So, thank you very much.
Any other comments? I want to address what Mr. Dees had to say to us for a moment. Mr. Dees, I particularly feel empathy for the members that you represent because of the long forced overtime circumstance that you've been under. I do agree with you that it is devastating on your families. The long-term effect of it is, it has to be just a compounding problem in every one of your homes. So I'm sorry for that. I am eager for an opportunity to be before us where we can remedy that, to help you with that. And with complete respect for you, I want to say, though, that I believe this position is not giving a raise. There's nobody in this position. We must hire a new person with a new set of skills that will take us to another level. So with all of my respect for you and your members, I'm going to support the recommendation that's before us. So please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you. That concludes our agenda this afternoon. If there are no comments by members of the board, we will reconvene again. Madam Clerk, when do we reconvene again? May the 8th, 2018 at 9 a.m. in this room. Is there a motion for us to adjourn?
Motion.
Without objection, so ordered. Thank you.